So we're in Jeremiah 40, and yesterday was a climactic passage, but a painful passage nonetheless. It's the climax, the crescendo, as it were, of what everything was leading toward, but it didn't have to. I think that was the thing. It was Judgment Day. It was Jeremiah 39, and it was the day that the Babylonians broke through the wall. It was the day that had been warned about. It wasn't what the Lord desired. It wasn't what the Lord wanted to happen. He continually called his people to turn to him, to walk in his ways, to call on him, to surrender to his word. And then it came to the point where that the Babylonians were coming, that Nebuchadnezzar was going to be his servant for this season, and so the Lord says, basically, surrender and live, resist and die. I think you can boil it down to that had become a message for quite a while. Surrender to my purposes and choose life. Resist and choose your own ways and choose death. And again, that's kind of even the whole heart of where Yeshua says, he who wants to keep his life must lose it, but he who will lose his life for my sake will keep it. He who wants to keep his life, if you hold on to your life and you won't lay it down, you won't surrender, ultimately you're going to lose it. And that's what ends up happening here. I mean, up to the end. In Jeremiah 38, the Lord was giving Zedekiah this last opportunity to choose life, right? To choose to surrender and live. And so in Jeremiah 38:20, the Lord said, Shema na, please, through Jeremiah says, the word of the Lord, Shema na, please Shema, please obey the voice of Adonai, and what I am speaking to you, so it will go well with you, and your soul will live. He said, if you will go out and surrender yourself to the Chaldeans, to the Babylonians, the city won't burn, and your family will live. Surrender and choose life. But in the end, Zedekiah couldn't surrender. He chose the counsel of his advisors rather than the pleading of the Lord. And the city burned, and his family died. His sons died right before his eyes. The last thing he saw with his eyes was Nebuchadnezzar slaughtering his sons before him and then putting out his eyes. It was a I don't know about your emotions. My emotions going through that passage yesterday, there's a heaviness. Even though, the word of the Lord came to pass and the judgment of the Lord came to pass, but when you see still those who just resisted and resisted and resisted and resisted and had every opportunity, and they did not, that when this happens to Zedekiah, in your heart, you're not like delighting over him going, booyah, see, God reigns. You're like, oh, Zedekiah, why didn't you listen? Why didn't you listen, man? That's what the Lord wanted. So that's happened, and then Zedekiah, his eyes were put out. He was put in shackles, taken to Babylon. About a month after the breaching of the walls, the guy named Nebuzaradan, he's the chief of the guard, or basically the head butcher. He's the head cook. He's the chief of the butchers. He shows up, and his job, he's been in the surrounding area in Judah, but now he shows up to Jerusalem, and his job is to burn it all down. He's going to burn down the palace. He's going to burn down the temple. He's going to take it down, take down the walls. And all your defenses, everything you depended on, everything you've relied on, everything that you thought you could rebel against, you could rebel and then hide, it was all going to be gone. The only option now was submission. And so he played this game enough times, and so now they were taking it down. And so Nebuzaradan shows up, and Nebuchadnezzar instructs him and says, here's the deal. He shows up, and before he burns down the palace, there are still people there. And there are still prisoners there in the captain of the guard, and one of the prisoners there is Jeremiah. And so Nebuchadnezzar says of Jeremiah, I want you to take him. I want you to look after him. Do no harm to him. Rather, do to him just as he tells you. That was Jeremiah 39:12. Take him, look after him, do no harm to him, and do to him just as he tells you. And so yesterday in chapter 39, we saw that Nebuzaradan and then these other named officials, says they sent and brought Jeremiah out of the guard's courtyard and gave him to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, which you'll remember from Jeremiah 26. Ahikam was the one who stood up for Jeremiah. Ahikam stood up for Jeremiah, and so Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, and Shaphan served as the royal secretary under Josiah. So it says, take him home. And so Jeremiah, so he dwelt among the people. So that was sort of a broad overview of that part where Nebuchadnezzar says to Nebuzaradan, take him and do whatever he tells you to do. So today it kind of zooms in on some of the interaction that actually happened there. And so we come to verse 1 of chapter 40. The word of the Lord came to Jeremiah from Adonai, after Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had released him from Ramah. He had taken him bound in chains among all the captives of Jerusalem and Judah who were being exiled to Babylon. Now the captain of the guard had taken Jeremiah and said to him, Adonai your God pronounced this evil against this place. And Adonai brought it about and did just as he said, because you have sinned against Adonai and have not listened. He says, Velo Shema, you did not listen, you did not heed to his voice. This thing has happened to you. So first of all, we see that when Jeremiah is taken, he's taken in the whole group of captives, those who are being taken captive to Babylon. He's bound in chains with the other captives, and the initial plan is to take them all to Babylon, to take them all into captivity. And so he's right there. But Nebuchadnezzar, we know, has given this particular instruction to Nebuzaradan, saying, do no harm to him, and do to him just as he tells you. Whatever he wants, you do. So Nebuzaradan, who apparently, I don't know, he still needs to make sure Jeremiah knows who's in charge here. And so what's fascinating here is that he then says, and it's like what they've been probably saying to the captives. He says this thing, he's giving the captives, including Jeremiah, and here specifically, he took Jeremiah as he's about to release him, and he says, and he gives the theological rationale behind this invasion. And he gives the name of God multiple times, Nebuzaradan does. Now again, remember, Daniel has been in Babylon for almost 20 years. Daniel is the regent over the province of Babylon. The Nebuchadnezzar has been slowly becoming aware of the things of God, and he knows probably of the things that have been being spoken by Jeremiah. Perhaps it's, the word of the Lord has been, because the word of the Lord has been, surrender to the king of Babylon and you'll live. And so now he's going, look, you guys didn't surrender. So this is sort of the rationale. You guys didn't heed the word of the Lord. Your God was saying for you to surrender. He doesn't really know who Jeremiah is. He just knows Nebuchadnezzar told him, do whatever this guy tells you. Okay, but then he takes him, and shackles him. He goes, listen, this all happened. This all happened because you people didn't listen to your God. Just so you know, this is your fault. The Lord, he says, Adonai spoke this calamity about this place. Adonai has done this just as he said. It's because you didn't Shema. So it's a little ironic that he's saying this, that the head butcher is pronouncing the word of the Lord that came through Jeremiah to Jeremiah. He's saying, the word of the Lord said surrender and live. You didn't surrender. So the guy's just following orders. He doesn't know necessarily, I think, why Jeremiah is getting the special treatment, but he's going to unchain him. So Nebuchadnezzar had said, deal with him just as he tells you. So verse 4, he says, but now behold. See, I am freeing you this day from the chains that are on your hand. If it's good in your eyes to come with me to Babylon, come, and I'll look after you. He says, I'll keep my eye on you. It's literally. But if it's evil in your eyes to come with me to Babylon, stop, cease, just don't go, don't take another step. The whole land is before you. Wherever it seems good and right to you to go there, okay? So whatever you want, man. Nebuchadnezzar told me, the king told me, what do you want? You want to come with me to Babylon? If you come with me, you're going to be under my protection. Okay, I'm going to look out for you. So that's kind of a nice offer when you consider the fact that, this is the chief butcher. He's looking out for you. Hey, all right. You're under good protection. But if that sounds bad to you, pick a spot. It's up to you, bud. Verse 5 says, but he would not turn back. Lo yashuv v'shuvah. He would not turn. So now in this passage, if you look back at verse 1 real quick, verse 1 opens with the word which came to Jeremiah from Adonai after Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had released him from Ramah. All right, so now it says the word that came to Jeremiah after Nebuzaradan released him, and then we get no word. Like there's no word that's given. No word follows there. So the thing is, Jeremiah has known the Lord's given him this vision of the good figs and the rotten figs, and the good figs are in exile, and the future is in Babylon, is through Babylon. God has a plan and a future for his people, and it's through Babylon. And here he has an opportunity to go to Babylon. Here he has been obedient to the word of the Lord. He has an opportunity to go there. Hey, you want to come with me? You'll be under my protection. You want to stay here? You go where you want to go. Okay? You decide. This place is going to be interesting. So to go to Babylon under his protection is not a bad thing. And I don't believe that Jeremiah... So why didn't Jeremiah go to Babylon? I believe it's because the word of the Lord came to him. I think the only reason he stays in Judah, the only reason it says he did not turn, like he would not turn, and it uses Yeshuv twice like this, he would not turn to go to Babylon, that he would have gone to Babylon if the Lord had instructed him to do so, but the word of the Lord came to him after he was released. So he refused to go because he was going to obey the word of the Lord. The land isn't empty, and the Lord still has work for him to do here in Judah. This is where the Lord has planted him. This is where the Lord has told him to be. The word of the Lord came to him after he was released. So apparently it wasn't to go to Babylon. So he's not going. We find out here how he ends up at Gedaliah's house, because remember, Gedaliah's dad had stood up for Jeremiah. Jeremiah would have known Gedaliah's grandfather, Shaphan, when the book of the law was found, and Jeremiah was part of that reformation. So it continues in verse 5. It says, go back then. It says he would not go. So go back then to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, whom the king of Babylon has made governor over the cities of Judah, and dwell with him among the people, or go anywhere it seems right in your eyes to go. So he's like, I'm suggesting go to Gedaliah. He's the new governing official here. He's the new new king. He's the regent over Judah now under the Babylon. Judah is now fully within the Babylonian Empire. It has been, but now the walls are down, the palace is burned, and Gedaliah has been appointed to govern. And the captain of the guard, the head butcher, gave him a ration and a gift and let him go. So Jeremiah went to the son of Ahikam to Mitzpah and dwelt with him among the people that were left in the land. So Gedaliah is about 8 miles north of Jerusalem in Mitzpah. And so this is where he's going to be. Right now, this will be where he's going. This is where he lives, and this is where he'll be governing from. Verse 7, now all the commanders of the forces, the Kol Sarei Hachalayim, Chayal is a warrior or a man of valor. So all the heads, the princes over the warriors, the commanders of the forces that were in the field, they and their men heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, over the land, and had put him in charge of the men and women and children, the poorest of the land, who were not carried away captive to Babylon. So, he's Gedaliah. They heard, oh, okay, so Gedaliah is in charge of this ragtag group of, leftovers. When you buy a thing of like grapes, and what this felt like was that when you get done, those little shriveled up tiny grapes that are at the bottom of the container, like, you're king over that. Like that they heard. That's why he was put over all those that were left, these men, women, and children that were the poorest of the land. They're the little grapes at the bottom. Like, I don't know what you're going to do with that. They weren't carried away to Babylon. No, they were like, yeah, we don't need them. You can keep them. Hey guys, enjoy, pick a field, enjoy it. So Gedaliah has been appointed regent over the land. He's in charge of the grapes, these little leftover grapes. And so the commanders of the troops, the generals, basically, as it were, that were out in the field leading the troops, they hear king's gone. The king's gone. Battle's over. So we need order. What do we do now? So the king's gone, so they hear, okay, well, Gedaliah has been appointed in charge. Let's go find out what we do. Who do we want to attack? Who do we fight? Come on, what's the next? Okay, Gedaliah's in charge. What are we going to do? Are we doing a rebellion? Are we going to throw this thing off? I don't know. What do we do? So they go to Gedaliah in Mizpah. Verse 8. So they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah, including Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Yochanan and Yonatan, sons of Kareah, Sariah, son of Tanhumet, the sons of Ephi, the Netophathite, and Jezaniah, son of Ma'akathite. They and their men. So there's only two of those names we really need to focus on right now, and that's basically all these guys come. They're the generals, but the two guys, and we only hear about any of them in the book of Jeremiah here, but we do hear about Ishmael. Ishmael, we find out in the next chapter, verse 1 of the next chapter, says that Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, son of Elishama, of royal descent. So he's of the house of David. Ishmael is of the house of David, and he was one of the chief officers of the king. So we need to know that about Ishmael. So one of the generals that comes is Ishmael. He's a man of royal descent, has been one of the chief officers of the king. And then there's these two brothers, Yochanan and Yonatan, sons of Kareah. So we meet Yochanan here, and then there are the others. I'm not going to go through pronouncing their names again. Verse 9. Then Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, swore to them and to their men, saying, okay, guys, do not be afraid to serve the Chaldeans. Stay in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it will go well for you. So as for me, I will dwell at Mizpah to stand before the Chaldeans who come to us. But as for you, gather wine, summer fruit, and oil. Put them in your jars and dwell in your cities that you have taken over. So now that Gedaliah is in charge, he's going to walk. He's been hearing what the Lord has been saying through Jeremiah. And he has long been an ally of Jeremiah. And so he's heard the word, surrender and live, resist and die. And so he's surrendering. He's like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's going to go well for you. Don't be afraid to serve the king of Babylon. I'm going to stay here. Let me reassure you. I'm going to be here, and I'll represent you. I'll stand before the king. I'll represent you. But let's now do what we're supposed to do, okay? And there's not going to be a rebellion. Don't be afraid. We're going to submit to this invasion. And then he goes, as for you, you've been given cities to take over, and there are people in those cities, and they're the poorest of the land. Likely the poorest of the land haven't spent a whole lot of time. I mean, they've worked the fields, but they haven't run the fields. But now there are whatever people are left. It's, remember the invasion happened July 18th. The place gets burned down in the month of Av, in the 5th month, which is generally in August. And so it's harvest time. Winter's coming. And so he says, there are people that everyone's going to need to be ready for the winter. So you go back to the places you've been given authority over, you've taken over, and now start the harvest. Gather the wine, gather the everything, gather the harvest, and take care of these cities. Take care of the population that's there. Now, with a decrease in population, because so many people have died and so many people have been carried off, there's going to be plenty in the harvest. The harvest will be a harvest of plenty, I'm sure. And so news reaches, during this whole time, over these last 30 months, the Babylonians have been have invaded, have been besieging Jerusalem. And so people have they've run for the hills, and they ran to the surrounding nations. And some of them ran to the southeast, to what is now Jordan, to Ammon and Edom. And so word reaches them that Zedekiah is gone. The king of Babylon has now put Gedaliah in charge, and it's harvest time. So they realized, let's go home. Let's go back home. So verse 11, also, when all the Jews who were in Moab, among Ammon's children, in Edom, and in all the countries, heard that the king of Babylon had left a remnant in Judah. Oh, there's some people left, and that he had appointed over them Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan. Then all the Jews returned out of all the places where they had been driven, and they came back to the land of Judah. So you have this first remnant of those who had been hiding away, kind of coming back. They came to Gedaliah in Mitzpah, and they gathered wine and summer fruit in great abundance. So there's a lot there. So now they're coming back, and there's a lot there. They're not going to be starving. They're coming home. Gedaliah is now the governing authority. So this is good. Apparently, what we're going to find out in just a minute is that I'm making some connections here, that within this group, there was someone or someone's returning with a message from the king back in Ammon. The king in Ammon, we come to find out that he has made or is trying to make an alliance. He is making an alliance with Ishmael. He knows that Ishmael is the son of David, that he's of royalty. And so he basically sent someone saying, hey, Ishmael, you're one of Zedekiah's chiefs. You're a royal. You're a son of David. So I don't know why Gedaliah is king, or why Gedaliah is regent. That should be you. So tell you what, is the message from the king in Ammon, Baali. He sends a message saying, you and I make an alliance, and let's see what happens. We'll see if we can make some good out of this thing. So that information arrives. All these people come up from Edom and Ammon, and then suddenly information reaches the ears of these commanders, those many people, including, so you have Ishmael, Yochanan, Yonatan, and the others. And so other than Ishmael, because this is about Ishmael, these guys go, all these commanders, they hear about this plot, and they go to warn Gedaliah. Verse 13. Then Yochanan, son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the forces that were in the field came to Gedaliah to Mitzpah. And they said to him, are you aware? The Baalis, the king of Ammon's children, has sent Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, to take your life. But Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, did not believe them. It says, he did not trust them. He didn't take their word as true. So Yochanan, the commanders of the forces mentioned, and all those guys mentioned above, they come to Gedaliah. There's a plot against you. Okay, have you heard? Are you aware of this? That the king in Jordan, the king in Ammon, that he has plotted with Ishmael. And Ishmael is going to take your life. Ishmael is going to kill you. But in the midst of, there's just been so much death, right? In the midst of all this upheaval, in the midst of this chaos, everything has been overturned. Zedekiah's gone, the king's gone. Of course, there's a rumor mill. There's drama. And so Gedaliah goes, no, he doesn't trust what they're saying. He doesn't trust. There's probably been so much, through all of this. Imagine, I think about when, we have news that plays, but do you remember, those of you you remember on 9/11, I remember that morning as things were hitting, that as the news was hitting, that we were hearing reports of car bombs going off in Washington, D.C., that it sounded really crazy, chaotic, and so you come to find out that a number of those reports were not true. Can you imagine before that when you had the news spread by word of mouth in this way, all the different kinds of reports that had been spreading? And so Gedaliah is wanting to bring a steady hand, wanting to bring steadiness after the chaos. Look, Ishmael can't be that stupid. He knows that Nebuchadnezzar who just took out Jerusalem, who just burned down the temple, who burned down the wall, took down those walls. And if you've been to Jerusalem and you've seen the size of those stones, which I'm just holding the signs of the stones that made up the walls and made up the temple, they are massive. And it was devastation that they took that wall down. And they took down the temple. And now he's put me as regent. So look, I don't think Ishmael's that stupid. I mean, that's a death wish for him to try to come against the one that Nebuchadnezzar has appointed. So I think it's not true. I don't trust that word. So then Yochanan himself secretly comes to Gedaliah privately, not secretly but privately. And verse 15 it says, "Then Yochanan, son of Kareah, spoke privately to Gedaliah at Mizpah, saying, 'Let me go now, and I will slay Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, and no one will know it. Why should he take your life, so that all the Jews that are gathered to you would be scattered, and the remnant of Judah perish?'" He says, look, let me deal with this. I'll take out this threat privately. No one's going to know. You're good for the people. You bring stability. Look, they're gathering to you. You're good for this remnant, for these little grapes that are left. Finally, there's kind of some hope for some stability here. Why should everyone die? Why should they be scattered and die? There's hope for this remnant. Let me go. Let me go fight for you. And if he kills you, it's going to affect everyone. Verse 16. But Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, said to Yochanan, son of Kareah, "Don't do this thing." He says, "Al ta'asha, do not do it. Don't do it." There's an emphasis here. There's the repeat. Don't do this. For what you're saying about Ishmael is a lie. It's a deception. It's a shaker. It's a lie. It's a deception. Do not do it. Gedaliah doesn't want more bloodshed. It's been enough. Come on. Basically, he doesn't want all the rumor mill to feed. He's so unlike so many of the others who have been kings, right? Many kings that are driven by paranoia and fear. He's like, no. He wants to provide a quiet, steady hand. He says, this is deception. This is drama, drama, drama. Don't make things worse than they already are. Unfortunately, Gedaliah doesn't consult the Lord. I mean, he wants to be a good ruler. He believes that these men who have come and he's assured them there's a sense of loyalty. Okay, here's where we go from here. And we got to quiet this thing down. And it's wise. What he's saying is wise. What he's saying sounds right. But he doesn't ask the Lord. I mean, it's not said, that's not spoken directly in the text. It doesn't say, but Gedaliah did not consult the Lord. He just doesn't consult the Lord. He makes a decision. He says, no, it's not true. He never says, Lord, is this true? Jeremiah now lives in his house. The prophet lives in his house. He could have said, okay, sounds like you're serious about this. Let me seek the Lord on this. Let me pray before I make a decision. Don't do anything hastily, but let me seek the Lord on this. But he doesn't do that. He just, his own wisdom, with his own understanding, decides, nah, it's not true. He trusts his own instincts. He gives orders without seeking the Lord. And so the last recorded words of Gedaliah are, it's a deception. It's a lie. But unfortunately, what we're going to come to see is it wasn't a lie. Gedaliah will be assassinated. So it's like, in the moment that the threat has been eliminated, right? You've had this internal threat among God's people for so long. And you can go, okay, well, the threat's been eliminated. Okay, now the land has been cleansed. So now we can go forward, and you can kind of rest in this idea that everything, like you can lose your vigilance. The fact is that the corruption within the hearts of men who seek to take back control, you got Ishmael, who is of royal descent going, that throne belongs to me. And all I can think about is kind of what happens in our own hearts, where we overcome some things and we go, okay, I'm good. And then we begin to make decisions based on our own understanding rather than saying, let me seek the Lord on this. Because on the surface, this looks right. On the surface, this looks good. And we trust in our own understanding. And we lose our vigilance about the stuff in our hearts that's going to seek to try to creep up, to take the throne that will bring us death. And that's the danger. The danger is when the opportunity to call on the Lord is right there. There's always the opportunity to ask the Lord. I've been asked before, people would, even friends of mine in ministry would, I was telling someone, well, this is something we're praying about, and almost mocking me, said, what, do you pray about everything? And can't you just make a decision? And in the moment you feel insecure and you feel small and you're like, but no, we need to seek the Lord on everything. The moment we become comfortable and the moment we go, okay, I got this, when the opportunity to say, Jeremiah, will you inquire of the Lord for us? And of course, now we don't need an intercessor like Jeremiah between us. We have an intercessor. We can come to the Lord and say, Holy Spirit, would you speak to my heart on this? Search me and know me, because the ways that seem right, there's a way that seems right to man, but in the end, it leads to death. And so sometimes the things that look normal and look like it's the right decision aren't necessarily the right decision. And sometimes the things that look like they're going to cause more problems. No, don't. You're going to cause problems if you go kill him, if you go slay the threat. But the threat needed to be taken out. But he didn't seek the Lord. And so that's how the passage comes to an end today. And so that's what I would encourage us to do today, is to make sure that in everything, that we don't just assume that our understanding is the Lord's understanding, that in every situation that we seek the Lord, that in every situation we stay vigilant and we come to the Lord and we inquire of the Lord and we say, Lord, what next? Is this true? Is this true? Don't just go, it's not true. Ask the Lord, is it true? Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a great day.